Okay, so today our Hannah Clugnis, so we will get started. Jeev got dinner. Anyone in the Zoom event or anybody watching us on our live stream on the USI website. Táfáilte Rove, Higgin Imuk Shaw, I wish I could speak Irish, but it's Misha Kleena. I am the Vice President for the Irish Language in the Union of Students in Ireland, and I'm delighted to welcome all to this event today. And there's been a huge demand for the event as well, which is always great to see. Lots of people looking to learn more about how to learn Irish and the benefits of Irish itself. So just a quick, I suppose, introduction into USI and what we do. So USI is the representative body for students across the island of Ireland. We have 374,000 members in 28 colleges or students' unions across the island, and we have done a lot of work on the Irish language over a number of years, but for the last 3 years we've had a full-time position for the role of the Lasú An Gaeilge, or the Vice President for the Irish language, which has really helped to strengthen the amount of work that USI does for Irish and to promote the language as well. So part of that, part of some of the work that we've done in the last couple of years, creating An Phoclar Aitric, which is a dictionary in Irish with LGBTQ plus terms, which is a monumental piece of work that was done in trying to normalise the Irish language, and I suppose to give LGBTQ plus Irish speakers the language to speak about their lives in their either their native language or Gaeilge, if it's their second language. Another massive piece of work we did was on reintroducing the Gaeltacht grant and lobbying the government on that, which we were very successful in, and that was brought back in budget 2020. So that had a huge impact on student teachers and their ability to access courses, primary teaching courses, and to be able to go to the Gaeltacht then without any extra charge. And in terms of the work this year, we launched the Cartachanga Troy de Vic Lane booklet, which was a guide for students on their language rights, and we do a whole lot of other work as well. So if you're watching this and you're a student in a USI affiliated college, there's plenty of opportunities to get involved. We have 2 working groups. So we have the Kishta Culturha, which is a working group made up of students, part-time officers and sabbatical officers as well, that try and feed into the work that USI does on the Irish language. And then we have the NUS USI Irish Language Task Force, which is a working group for students in the north in NUS USI colleges as well, to feed into the work that USI does for students, Irish speaking students in the north. So that's enough about USI, and I will quickly introduce our Cathaoirleach and our panelists for today's discussion. So first of all, our Cathaoirleach, we have Oscar O'Keara, one of the co-founders of the Pop-Up Gaeltacht. Some of you might have heard of it in recent years. It is one of the biggest, I suppose, one of the biggest phenomenons in terms of the promotion of the Irish language, and the normalising of the language as well, and the social aspect of it then as well. Then we have Ciara Ní, a bilingual poet, well-known writer, and also creator of the YouTube series What the Focal. Then we have Kieran Wad, so Feimnach Bailrata agus Idgis. I'm going to try to put some English on that because I can never translate it, but Kieran manages the Irish classes run by Conan na Gaeilge. And then we have Ruth Mihevnon, who is a Teagascóir na Gaeilge, so an Irish tutor and Irish teacher in Canada at the minute. So I'll stop talking now and I'll let you enjoy the panel. So I'll pass you over to Oscar. Oscar, míle maith.
Thank you very much. You might have to forgive me. I'm not used to speaking to some of these panelists in English, so I'll try not to slip too much into Irish. But if I do, I'm sure Clean will pull me up on it. So yeah, we were all introduced there by Clean. Thank you very much. But perhaps I think a good way for the audience to understand the panelists' relationship with Irish, maybe we'll do that first. We'll talk maybe through the 3 panelists and maybe what their relationship is with Irish to give a context to the audience. So Ruth, maybe Tosulatsa, starting with you, where did you come to the Irish language, or what's your relationship with it?
Díobh ar fad, Díobh ar maidin ó Canada. So good morning from Ottawa, Canada. So my relationship with Irish is I grew up in the Gaeltacht area of Rathcarn in County Meath. So I went to the primary school there, Scully Granny Rathcarn, and I had a very positive upbringing with the language and learned it in a very organic way there. So that's kind of how I started out with the language. And then I also spoke it at home with my dad then back in Ireland before I moved to Canada. So that's kind of how I grew up with it and had a very positive relationship with it. And then after that, I went to study it in Maynooth University. So I did my undergrad in Spanish and Irish, and then my master's in Irish.
So it's a living everyday language for you from birth.
Yes.
Fantastic. And Kieran, moving to you. What's your relationship with the language and how did you come across her?
Yeah, Gurmagat, Oscar. So first of all, just want to say I'm from Longford, so I don't have any link whatsoever to the Irish language. My family doesn't speak Irish, and you don't get much Irish in Longford in the Midlands of Ireland there. So I didn't go through Irish language schooling or anything like that, but from the age of about 12, each summer I would spend 3 weeks with Coláiste na Bhín, who are one of the Irish summer colleges. So I was a student there for 4 consecutive summers, and then I worked as a Kinnera or leader for the next 4 consecutive summers. So I was with them for probably 6 years, 8 years, something like that, which then followed through to really getting to enjoy Irish language, getting a bit of a graw for it. And then I ended up heading to college to do Irish and French, and then was heavily involved with the Cumann Gaelach, the Irish Language Society, which I presume we'll talk about a little bit later. And that's how I got interested.
Very good, Kieran. Ahira, perhaps you could maybe tell the audience as well how you came to fall in love, if that's too strong a term, with the Irish language.
Well, draw town is Stocha. Hi everyone, it's Misha Kieran. I'm from Dublin, so I don't know if that gives me more or less of a reason than someone from Longford to be able to speak Irish. Ní raibh mé ar Gael school, so I wasn't at a Gael school or a bun school in Gaeilge. It's Gael school and then Gael class. I always forget because I wasn't at a Gael school. But then when I was in 6th class, I had some teachers who basically showed me that Irish is so linked to our culture. We learned songs in Irish and kind of poems, and they kind of made me realize that without learning the language, that was not really available to me. So I also came from a background where my parents would think highly of the language. So when I asked to go to the Gaeltacht every summer and have them spend all that money on me, they were very happy to do. So I'm probably happy to get rid of me for 3 weeks as well. But I went to Coláiste Camhais every year for 6 years, and I did the whole Kinnera, pre-Kinnera thing. And then the same as Kieran, I went to Trinity and did a lot with the Cumann Gaelach there. I also studied English and Irish.
Very good. So Ruth, I might return to you now for the first question about kind of what you're doing now currently. Like you're a teacher with the ICUF. Would you maybe give us some perspective on what the ICUF is and what the specific program in the ICUF is, and what made you apply for it?
Yeah, of course. So we call it ICUF for short. People say ICUF, but what it really is the Ireland Canada University Foundation. So it's a foundation that basically sends Irish teachers or Tagascori Gaeilge to a Canadian university to teach Irish language in the university. So it's a great program. So it's a 2-year program, and they send us out here to do as much Irish promotion as we can. So we do the classes in the university, and we also would teach night classes and things like that in the community. And also you have to get into your GAA and into any music sessions going on or anything. You have to just promote Ireland and Irish as much as you can. So you're kind of like an ambassador for the country and the language while you're here. And it's a great program because people are kind of expecting the ICUFer, they say the ICUFer to come. You know, they're excited for the Irish language teacher to arrive in Canada and to do all of the work. And it's lovely to kind of come into a community with, you know, who's already waiting for you and kind of give you a Céad Míle Fáilte already, and who has Irish and Ireland in their heart already. So it's wonderful. And I applied for it because I wanted to spread Irish to other people, you know. So when I was in Ireland, I worked in Maynooth University, and I taught Irish to international students there. So anyone who was doing their Erasmus or study abroad in Ireland and wanted to kind of show off to their family when they went back and said, you know, I know how to say my name is in Irish and I live in Maynooth and all of that. So I was already kind of doing that work, and I really like teaching the international students. So then I said, I could do the same thing just in another place, and a chance kind of to move somewhere new and meet new people as well. So it's an excellent program.
I think, Ruth, your insights will be very valuable here, because I mean, it's you are starting with students essentially who have no formation or formational knowledge of it. Like it's like, and therefore, if the students that you are teaching can learn and can pick up and can achieve fluency, then really, in reality, anyone can once they have the desire to. So how do the international students maybe differ in comparison to people from Ireland in their outlook or their starting position?
Yeah, so like it's excellent because you're the first person they'll ever hear probably speaking Irish. Some people don't even know Irish exists, you know, when you go to teach, or they think it might be just like an accent or something like that. So it's kind of a privilege to be the first person to, you know, to show them what Irish is. And then you kind of have that responsibility to make it a positive and fun thing. And that's kind of how people see it. They think, oh, this is so different, or this is so interesting. A lot of time people say, oh, that word is so cute, that's so funny. You know, that's like, it's a whole new experience, and it's always positive. I find none of my international students or my students here have any baggage with Irish. So that's the kind of thing that stands out. Then there's no, oh, I had to do this, or, you know, I had this teacher or anything. Nobody has any bad experiences with it. So it's always positive. And like, I don't even tell them that people have negative opinions of Irish at all. It's just positivity the whole time. So that's really nice. And it's kind of a lovely thing to be able to be the first person that they hear speak it. And then they can kind of go from there and always have these like good memories and fun, you know, with the classmates and that kind of thing. So yeah, it differs a lot because I find sometimes with Irish students, you're trying to convince them that it's something that they will like, but as opposed to here it's something new and exciting all the time. So.
And is there a certain type of person who chooses to study Irish in Canada? Mainly people with Irish heritage, or people who are interested in linguistics? What's the kind of the general demographic?
Yeah, well, you always get people who have some kind of Irish ancestry, and you know, Canada is full with people with Irish ancestry, you know. So you'll definitely have that, but also people, as you say, who are interested in linguistics or study linguistics, or maybe speak 4 languages already and said, oh, I'm just going to try this one, why not? And then, you know, people as well who just want a challenge, or people who just are interested in Ireland. So a lot of people say, oh, you know, I always wanted to go to Ireland, or I heard these things, and I just wanted to kind of actually get immersed into the culture. And a lot of people here realize that the best way to understand the people is through the language. So a lot of people will do that. Will just say, oh, I wanted to be able to kind of go, if I ever go to Ireland, to be able to say my couple of focal and be, you know, proud and confident in that, you know. So that's, you know, that's really nice to hear as well. So it's not like one type of student. I have all kinds of people in my classes for different reasons, you know. So I always ask that at the start of class, and I always get different answers. So it's not just one type of student.
So in terms of that first class or the second class or the first couple of weeks, you're starting from scratch. What are you doing? This might be like an overly simple question, but like, it's like, what are you actually teaching in that first couple of weeks? What are the building blocks? Where do you start?
Yeah, well, I follow the excellent program of TEG, Tasas Orpuk na Gaeilge. So I used to work in the TEG office, so I know all about TEG. But basically, they kind of set out the A1 level, which is the beginner level. So if anyone's interested in starting again from scratch, I would recommend going to teg.ie and seeing all of the different steps that you should take. So basically, that is the beginner level for all European languages is A1. So you could do an A1 in French and Spanish and Irish, it's all the same. So you should have the same language skills by the end of that course. So basically it's, you know, your greeting, saying hello, and where you live, your family, your hobbies, what you do every day, things like that. So it's nice. It's kind of a nice and slow start to it. It's not too hectic, but you know, every class they'll get their skills and they'll get their new things. And you have to remember, you know, they're hearing Ziaquit. It's the first time they've heard those sounds, first time they've heard those words, you know. So it's kind of you're bringing them back to basics from the very beginning, and it's a lovely thing. It's a lovely way to teach. I love it because as I said, I'll be the first person that they'll hear saying those things. So it's a big privilege for me. But yeah, that's basically it. So it's just by the end of the A1 course, you should be able to, you know, introduce yourself and say a little bit about yourself and have a basic conversation with somebody. And they do, by, you know, I'm preparing my class now for their orals. They'll have an oral by the end of mid-December. They'll have an oral exam, you know, and they only started at the end of September. So it's quick to know as well, but they get a lot in it. And so it doesn't take that much time to be able to learn those simple things and be able to do an oral exam, official, a university oral exam by the end of one semester.
So the TEG structure then would be good for somebody who's maybe trying to give themselves some confidence, because maybe some people in the audience here would be able to do the A1 or A2 or whatever, and progress and actually see that there's a lot of the bunchloch or a lot of the foundational stuff they already have naturally already. So that's,
they do indeed,
worthwhile and valuable. In terms of, what would you recommend, like if somebody wanted to emulate what you're doing, how would they go about doing that, or what level would they need to achieve, or who would you recommend to actually go and do it? I'm trying to show people what's at the end of a journey as well, like, do you know what I mean? Not just what at the start. So the end of a journey could be doing what you're doing and spreading the good word. So it's like, who would you recommend, or what kind of people would end up doing as you are doing?
Yeah, so the ICUF program they want people who would be happy to promote Ireland and the Irish language in any way they can. So, if you're someone who thinks that they have the skills, if you have any musical skills or sports or anything that you could bring to a country. So it's kind of like the song Misha Era, like you're bringing all of Ireland, you're just like, I'm here, I'll try to do as much as I can. So that's the kind of person that should apply for ICUF, that it's not just teaching in a formal sense, but you're also bringing everything you can to this community. So it's not just I'm in Ottawa, but there's a version of me in all of the Canadian universities, so that it's not just one place. So there's Montreal, Toronto, Edmonton, like different places. So so that's the kind of person, like if you think that you could spread Gaeilge and spread everything to do with Ireland as much as you can, I would recommend to apply for it. And if you're interested in looking at all of the different entry requirements and things like that, I would visit icuf.ie, so icuf.ie, and you can see all of the different programs and scholarships they have. So they have different types as well. So they have academic scholarships too. So you can have a look there. But definitely, if you just have the graph for the Gaeilge and have that kind of mission in your head that you want to spread it to as many people as you can, that's the main thing.
So I think that's lovely. There's kind of an entry and an exit there. Like it's quite nice, and TEG and ICUF. So it's Clean, I presume you're going to be spreading that around to everybody. Perfect. Ruth, Philip me staring at me like, but I'm going to move on now for the moment. Kieran, you're up. Kieran. So Kieran, you're working with Conan na Gaeilge. Describe your actual role with Conan na Gaeilge for me in English, please.
Yeah, so I suppose for CLINA as well, it's the Membership and Education Executive. So it's basically a dual role position. There's two jobs in it. The first job, which is more about what we're talking about today, is education. So we're talking about all the education courses. So I've been in the role about 2 and a bit years now, and obviously beforehand it was running all the classes out of this building, which I'm in at the moment, which is number 6 Harcourt Street, Conor na Gaeilge's HQ. And we ran about 3 or 4 terms a year, classes from beginners level all the way up to advanced classes. Since March, obviously we're on Zoom looking at each other, all of the classes have moved online, which was different for us. We hadn't thought about doing that before, or we had thought about it, but we just hadn't gotten around to it. But it's amazing because now so many people can do the classes everywhere, which is way better than just you have to come into Dublin City to do them. So that's one part of my role. So it's just all the coordination of those classes. And then the second half of the role is about membership. So Conor na Gaeilge is spread all over the world, but all over Ireland in branch form. So there's like branches of Conor na Gaeilge all over Ireland and in multiple places worldwide. And I basically organize and kind of head up the admin for those branches, we'll say.
And in terms of those classes, who's attending those classes? I'm interested in the branch thing and maybe showing people what level of fluency is required to be on a branch and all that. But starting with the classes, it's like who attends the classes? Is it beginners? It's people who already know their stuff and they just want to like become poets like Kira, or it's like how do we describe that demographic, Kira?
Yeah, but literally everyone all across the board there, because we do have like 8 levels from beginners all the way up to advanced levels. So the kind of beginners that we get in are either people who have been away from Irish for quite some time. They may have gone through the Irish language education or Irish education system, done the Leaving Cert quite a few years ago, and now they want to come back. We also have in the beginners levels people from multiple different countries. We have America, Canada, Mexico at the moment, Wales, Spain. We have multiple, like, massive amount of people. And we also have a lot of people at the moment, because they're online, who are learning Irish, but may not have English as their mother tongue, which is different. And it's very difficult to find resources for the person or the learner like that. So yeah, we have those forms of beginners. Then we have people who maybe their sons and daughters are going into Gael school, and maybe they have been out of Irish for a while. They need to come back and do a refreshers class, kind of get back up to scratch so they can help with homework and things like that. And then as we move up the levels, we're looking at people who might have come out of college and want to go back to do maybe a master's in education, to go for primary school teaching. Maybe they're coming back from a country that they learned to be a primary school teacher in another country, so say in the UK, and now they need to do the Cáileach sa Gaeilge, which is the Irish language requirement test. And then we have people who are going into the likes of Hibernia and things like that. And then at the highest level, we have people who just want a good bit of Gramadach, a good bit of Mo Cinealach, and really want to get their everything perfect, you know.
And Kieran, so for the purposes of people maybe like who are participating in this, or the audience here, like, it's obviously people who want to kind of get back onto something, who or want to start something. And can you maybe describe how a typical course works in terms of what's the, you know, how much time would you be spending on a Zoom call a week? What kind of materials there are? What you're expected to do? It's like, what's the work look like?
So if you are to come onto a course with us, they're usually structured in 10-week terms. So we'd have maybe 3 or 4 terms a year. And basically you would have your class, you would have signed up for that beforehand. And then you'd be looking at 1.5 hour class per week. So over the 10 weeks, you do 15 hours, and that all is on Zoom at the moment. Usually prior to class and after class, the Zoom call will be left open a little bit, just so there's that kind of connection, or something you don't get in a normal class, or you don't get in a Zoom class that you would get in a normal class, is afterwards you'd sit there and go, anyone want to go for a coffee, or et cetera, et cetera. So you got that time to kind of connect with each other. And then also when you're on the courses, you'll be getting constant contact from Conradh na Gaeilge about resources, events, social events, things online that you can go and take part in. Everything just kind of bolster what you're learning each week, and kind of move on with that. Now, we also, like Ruth, use TEG's syllabus, or the TEG syllabi for all of our levels. So A1 is beginners level, A2 is refreshers level, and so on and so forth. So the great thing about TEG, and I'd say Ruth kind of mentioned this already, is it's all online. Before you even get onto the course, you can see the full syllabus. You can see exactly what the teacher is looking at, what you're going to learn, and then you can see each topic week by week, what you're going to do, what they're expecting you to know, and then what the teacher's going to be going through with you. So yeah, so TEG is the kind of syllabus we use.
And have you found, like now in COVID times, you touched on it, that it's more accessible in terms of geographically, people don't have to travel and whatever else. Do you find that maybe it's emotionally more accessible as well, or that it's easier to kind of sit there? Maybe is it less intimidating? Is it more accessible in other ways other than geography is kind of what I'm driving at. It's like, is it an easier onboarding on Zoom than it would be to walk into a classroom?
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides to that. Obviously, we all know what the Zoom classroom experience is like, and talking over each other and stopping and starting, and it can be a little bit scary. But once we come over that hurdle, and we kind of saw that happen maybe May, June, July, people were starting to get very used to coming on to things. It's absolutely made it so much more accessible. Like, you know, you might have run a pop-up Gaeltacht in Dublin City back last year, and people probably came to the Facebook page and said, why aren't you running a pop-up Gaeltacht in Galway? Why aren't you running one in Mayo? You know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now people can just do that on Zoom, and, you know, you don't have to be in any geographical location. And also, people can join into things and bring themselves out of things as much or as little as they want. You know, you can join into a talk like this. You don't have to say anything. You can just be in the background. Whereas if you arrive to a spoken event, you're going to have to sit down with people either side of you. You might have to say hello. You mightn't like the person beside you. You know, it makes it more accessible. It definitely does make it more accessible. And you have no excuse anymore.
And in terms of improvements, in terms of how people progress in the classes, like, do you see people progressing well? Do you see people improving well? Do you see the fruits of their labor? Or, you know, can people see their own success? Or can people, what improvement do you see in people who are taking the classes?
Yeah, 100%. Like the people who you do have, I mean, in every class you have the people who put 110% into every single thing they do. Those people we're seeing are moving on and on each term, going a little bit further each term, coming back to you with more and more complicated questions that they get to a point where I don't know, can I answer them anymore? But, you know, like, there is definitely improvement, but it is a thing. And unfortunately, as the Irish population goes, it is a thing that you have to work at as well, you know? So, you know, as much as you give into it, you will get out of it.
And in terms of cost, Kieran, just as what's the cost?
So a 10-week term with us is €150. So it works out at about €15 a class, €10 an hour.
And you'll get it's certified, it's recognized. You'll have something that you can stick on the CV at the end, as well as.
Yeah. Of course, yeah, you'll have a certificate from Conor Nagelka, yeah.
Okay, Kieran, Gurumila Margaret. I'll have more questions for you, but that'll do for the moment. Kira. I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm good. I'm enjoying this actually. Huh? So you're known for many things here, but I think that maybe one of the things that I'd like to talk to you about today is the YouTube series What the Fuckle. It's something that I recommend to people a lot who are interested and who think that they might be interested. It's kind of catnip for these people. They're like, okay, Grant, it gives people something that they can watch, consume at their leisure, and it invites them to experience it more. And it answers some of the questions maybe that they're a bit embarrassed to ask, but that's me describing it. Would you like to maybe take over and describe What the Fuckle to the audience?
Yeah, Kínta. So What the Fuckle, as the title suggests, comes from those moments where you're thinking about some element of the Irish language and you're saying to yourself, what the fuckle? You know, like, what is that? Basically, the reason I started it is, like, nobody in my family speaks Irish. So I'd be having these conversations, you know, my family would ask me questions like, oh, why is it spelt like this? Or why is there a shavu here? What, you know, these kind of, sometimes, what's that sound? Like, say, the Ur quail. But like, I would kind of explain, I'd give these concise answers and I'd compare things in ways that I found useful. And my sister said, you should really record yourself saying that, because she said she was trying to relate the information to a friend of hers, but she couldn't remember. And she said, I wish I had a video of you doing it. And then this happened a few times with friends of mine as well. And I said, okay, maybe I'll just make videos of it. So I started off making the series years and years ago, 2017, I think it was. And the questions that I started tackling first were things people ask me, but as well as that, things that nobody told me, because I kind of felt like I came into the Irish language on my own and I didn't really have like a guide. And there's certain things, like, for so long when people said they were from Tyrconnell, I was just like, where's Tyrconnell? I have no idea where this place is. Nobody has ever told me that that's in Donegal, you know. So actually I haven't done that video yet, but same with Kirkagreena. But yeah, I wanted to pick apart little elements of Irish and make videos explaining how they work. So that's What the Fuckle.
And what kind of feedback do you get? Or do you get a lot of responses? Do you get a lot of comments? Do you get a lot of, what kind of feedbacks do you get?
I get great feedback, actually. Like, people who are beginners would say, oh, thank God, like, I haven't seen this explained in a book. Because sometimes I'll say, look, the rules are really complicated, but the general rule is this. And I think people find that useful because, like, I don't particularly like grammar. Maybe that's why it comes so easy to me. Like when I see some people love it, but I see a big table of like rules and exceptions, I just like want to give up. But if someone can say, look, generally this is what happens, then it's kind of, you're like, oh, well, people will understand me 99% of the time, so that's okay. So I've gotten good feedback from learners, and I did a video on the Oireachtas na Saona one year, and I met a few people at Oireachtas na Saona who said, like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go, and I googled it and I saw your video, and then I said, oh yeah, I'd like to see what that's all about. So that was amazing, because I just like, that was the reason I made it, because I didn't go to the Oireachtas my first year in university. I was just scared and I didn't know what it was, and I didn't have very good Irish. So I wanted to make sure that if anybody Googled it or looked it up, they'd get a bit of basic information and they'd go in with a bit of knowledge, because I think just having a base level of knowledge can really help with your confidence.
So to put you on the spot, Ciara, can you explain Oireachtas na Saona to the audience?
Oireachtas na Saona is like the festival for Muintir na Gaeilge. So it's an old festival, and it celebrates Irish history, and not history, it celebrates Irish kind of traditional dance and music and performances, like storytelling and things like that. And yeah, it lasts for like 4 days. Like sometimes it's in Killarney. It was in Dublin a few times in the City West. It was supposed to be in Galway this year, and people come from all around the country, and we all gather together in a hotel, and like no matter where you walk, there's someone singing in the corner and dancing, and there's old and young, and there's just like carnage in the most beautiful way.
And would it be fair to say that, like, if you go to the Oireachtas and you enjoy yourself, that there's no real, it means that you've passed whatever that mark is, like in terms of being intimidated by the language or anything like that? It's kind of a rite of passage to some extent. Would that be fair?
Definitely. And like, I have so many memories of being at the Oireachtas and like being like so scared, because you go with the university first. Well, that's how I went first. And I'd kind of be happy in my bubble. But then like in the bathroom, I'd meet someone from Connemara and I'd be like, keep it cool, And then I remember someone saying to me, she said, oh, Bíoc Ihawagat. And I was like, Bíoc Ihawagat. I didn't know what Bíoc meant. And I went and asked my friends. They're like, oh, like, may you have like good night, like have a good night. And I still say that phrase. So it's really nice how learners of the language and people from the Gaeltachtaí can meet together at this event.
Other than the Oireachtas video, have you had, what's the most successful video you've had on What the Focal?
I don't actually know, but I think I did one about Irish words that have actually managed to be subsumed into English or are used around the world, and that's popular. And there's one on Irish surnames that was quite popular. I think a lot of people want to know what their surname means, so that's why.
And for you, I suppose, in those interactions, because you are interacting outside of a formal structure with people, unlike maybe Kieran and Ruth in the classes. Not to say that Kieran and Ruth don't interact with people in informal settings, but I suppose, what are the things that people tell you? What are the common questions that people ask, or the common tropes, perhaps, that they present to you that are the easiest for you to knock down? What are the easiest myths to dispel? The things that we could possibly dispel in the next 5 minutes.
I'll try and dispel a few, but Colm O'Brien has a wonderful series about myth busting as well, that people can look up. What do people seem to be surprised that, like, anybody under a certain age, like, it's like, if your hair isn't grey, how can you speak Irish? And it's like, if you're from the city, how can you speak Irish? And I'm queer as well, and I think people don't think there's a space for queer people in the Irish language, but there definitely is. What else do people think? Like, people ask me, remember when Kneecap started gaining popularity, and someone said, do you feel like they're ruining your language? And I was just like, imagine someone asking you, like, seeing like Jay-Z and being like, do you think he's ruining English? Like, I understand that it's a minority language, so it's a different situation. It is categorically different. But no, they're using their native language to express themselves artistically, and that's wonderful. So,
in terms of those tropes where it comes to learning or language acquisition, or how difficult it is, like, are there tropes like that in terms of people assuming that it's some kind of an incredibly difficult language to learn, and what would you say to somebody who would say that to you?
Yeah, there definitely is a bit of that, and I find it interesting because people say like, well, I learned it for, we all go to school and we learn Irish, and I feel like when I'm doing impressions I'm being really mean. But people say, well, I went to school and I learned it for so many years, I couldn't pick up a word, but I learned French, and I learned French on Duolingo or whatever. But I think it might be to do with the speaking opportunities. I think, like, as I said, I'm not a big fan of grammar. I learned the majority of my Irish like in Club Conor na Gaeilge, or like, I mean, I did my undergrad in Irish and I did a master's as well, and that definitely helped. But like in terms of day-to-day learning, like I have most of the words I know about the internet, or because I have my computer I got in Irish where possible, and my Twitter in Irish, and my WhatsApp, my phone. Like as much as you can immerse yourself, the easier it will be, because you don't just learn off a term and then wait for the opportunity to use it. They're embedded in your life. So I think when people say that the language is hard, like sometimes they're making excuses, because I don't think it's any harder than any other language. People compare, say German's really hard, and they say French is really hard, and yeah.
Gurmagad here. I'll be back to you. So, Ruth, maybe if I could pass that kind of question, or that kind of theme onto you about like, obviously about difficulty. It's like you probably speak to or instruct or teach people who have multiple languages. It's English is probably not their only language. And how do they find grammatical structure, etc.? Is it accessible? Is it difficult? How does it compare to other languages maybe that are being learned by your students?
Yeah, definitely. So, Canada is quite bilingual as well with French. And I find people as well will kind of compare Irish things to French, and the Quebecois French as well. Sometimes the sounds, people say, oh, that's kind of like what we do here. And people always compare it to something that they know in another language. And so that's something I always kind of see here, that people will say, oh, that's similar to this part in Spanish, or similar to this, or, they won't do that thing of like, oh God, that's so weird, so different. Like, how can I ever get around that? People will find some kind of similarities with another language that they know. And also I speak Spanish at home as well. So, I can see that even myself when I teach to another Spanish speaker, that they'll see similarities and stuff like that. So yeah, no, definitely it is something that I think it's something that Irish people have a lot, that they have this idea that Irish is so different and unique. And obviously it is in its own way, but also if you have another language, it is an easier way to learn it and pick up on different sounds and vocabulary that is similar.
Here on Keshkena, that's a really modular Keku Dakaris Satoshi Marhanga. How difficult is she as a language, and do you find that maybe some of your international students, like you mentioned, Mexicans, I think there, and maybe a few more, do they necessarily comment that it's a difficult language to learn?
I think there's a couple of things here. Number one, the people who unfortunately have the most negative view and will say that it is the most difficult will always be Irish people, who will come back to it and end up using the trope, the 14 years of education, and sometimes Peg herself comes into the conversation, etc., etc., etc. But we did kind of touch on it earlier. When there are speakers learners who do not speak English as their mother tongue, the resources in Irish is actually, there's not a lot of them. It's an awful lot more difficult if you don't speak English already, because I think a lot of the Irish language resources were structured around, okay, well, this person speaks English, now they can speak Irish. And even if you are looking through some books and some resources, they might be phonetically written out, but it'll be phonetically written out by how an English speaker would say the word, not Spanish, Finnish, any other type of person. And they might even look at that phonetically English written out that you're going, that makes sense. They're going, well, those letters don't even go together in the English language, so why would I say that, So I don't think it's so much difficult. I think there's a much more openness there when people maybe aren't so influenced by the English language. There's a much more openness to, okay, well, this is the way it is. But yeah, it can be quite difficult to learn itself, Okay. I think it is really interesting though when you explain to someone that, say, the English language has very few rules but an awful lot of exceptions, whereas the Irish language is really systematic. And if you learn your sounds, you learn your slender, your broad, and all these kind of things, start putting them together, it'll start making sense, you know.
Thank you. Now, Clean has been passing on some questions from the audience. So I'm going to read these out. Some of them will be directed to specific people, and then some of them I'm going to throw to the floor being the three of you, and feel free to jump in. So Duolingo often comes up as a resource. Would any of you want to comment on Duolingo, and would you recommend Duolingo to help or learn or brush up on Irish? Ciara,
I think I actually haven't used Duolingo myself, but I do know that I have a friend from Romania who's been using it for a long time, and she certainly has learned a lot of nouns. But I would say that then she always gets a fright if she hears like me speaking Irish, because she thinks it's too fast. But I think that's a common thing with language learners. So I'd say it's a great gamified way to brush up on your Irish and learn things, but you probably need to put that into practice to get the real benefits from it. I'll let the teachers answer now.
Would either of the teachers, if anybody has a strong opinion against what Ciara's just said, I think that it's...
No, well, I think it's great to be able to have anything that's, you know, easily accessible. Like your phone is just there, and you can play along and, you know, have it like in your life. So I think that's, you know, a way for any languages to have just 5 minutes a day is all you need. You know, you can just have it in your day to day. So if it's Duolingo and you like that and enjoy it, you know, you can do that, but you could also listen to a song or listen to a podcast or do something else that you enjoy that's just small and snappy, and you can say, okay, that's my bit of Gaeilge for the day. So I think that's the way you can approach it. It could be Duolingo if you like that, but just think, okay, 5 minutes a day, and then I'll be happy, you know.
Perfect. Ruth, I have another question for you. What are the minimum requirements to apply for ICUF? Is an undergraduate in Irish enough to apply? What music or sports did you play to help you apply?
I'll avoid the sports question, but no. For the ICUF, you need to have you have to have a undergrad in Irish, and then you have to have a master's in something relevant. So it doesn't have to be a master's in Irish, but you could, for example, like secondary school teaching or some kind of thing that would also kind of help your case. It doesn't have to be Irish necessarily. So you do need to have your undergrad. So those are the requirements, and obviously fluency in the language. But as I said, you can look at all of the details for that on the website. They explain it very well, and all of the things that you get with the scholarship. So that's for that. And for me, I really have a love for music, and I play the tin whistle and stuff like that, so I can teach that. So I have that for my class as well, and things like that. But yeah, it's you know, like I never, you know, did much in GAA, but I've been doing more with GAA in Canada than I ever did in Ireland. So you're going to be doing stuff that maybe you haven't done before anyways. So, you know, you have to just kind of be open to promote Ireland and everything that Ireland has to offer while you're here. So yeah, and was there another question?
No, B'nai. Kieran, Conradh na Gaeilge branches, do they only run classes or do they run other activities?
Yeah, like massive range of activities. Depending on where the branch is, how big it is, what kind of people are involved, it can change a lot. There can be any amount of activities. So classes would be one of them. Conversation groups, you might have a weekly conversation meetup. You have things like bingo. Some of them would run maybe parent and toddler groups, stuff for kids, youth clubs, etc., etc. And then it can go as far as, you know, history walks off Gaeilge and debate, podcasts, all of these kind of things. But it really does depend on where the branch is situated and kind of who's in it. Really good for international learners in London. Conradh na Gaeilge London are massively involved in so much stuff, and they have a really big committee who does so many really interesting activities. They have stuff for kids, they have stuff for adults, they have conversation groups, pop-up Gael Talk. They even do their own podcast called Nuacht Mal, or Slow News, which is very good.
No, that's a good catch, Kieran. Like the Nuacht Mal is actually very good for the audience. Clean, I'm sure we'll pop that on the list of links. It's basically the news of the day read really slowly. and the news at the moment isn't very relaxing, but it is one of the most relaxing forms of consuming it, I have to say. I have another question here for Ruth. Irish Heritage Clubs in Seattle will host Irish Week Online in 2021. What events can be run online to help support and promote Irish during COVID-19? Now that's a big question, Ruth.
Yeah,
Well,
I did an e-Gaeltacht here as well. So they're all, people don't realize this as well, that in North America, they always do these Irish language weekends or weeks, like big events, so that's kind of another role of the ICUF scholar to go and teach at these, and they could be in a different part of the country and you get to travel and stuff like that. So last year I got to do it in person, and this year I did it online. So things like that are still going on. And there are also, the Irish community in North America as well is massive. So here in Ottawa, there's a group called Ottawa Irish Arts, and I'm involved with that group as well. And then we'll be putting on, quizzes and conversation groups. And there's always stuff on, now online, we have to do everything online. But I'm sure every city in North America has an Irish community group like that. So they're, Coltis, they have all these different names. It depends where you are. So definitely kind of maybe just do a Facebook search of where you are and see if there's any Irish groups like that. So there is definitely one here. There in Canada and all the major cities, there are these groups. So there's always events, and there's always Irish language groups online. So I do the language classes, but also there'll be conversation groups and, as I said, quizzes and just social things as well to do. So you just kind of have to search, and social media is great now because they're always publicizing everything, So you just have to do a little bit of research, and I'm sure you'll find something near you.
Thank you. There's a similar question about areas of the US that have Irish-speaking communities that have hung on. I've basic Irish, but opportunities to practice here are so few. Any suggestions for a US audience? So the question is really somebody who's based in the US wants to learn and is maybe looking for a quote-unquote community. Ruth, I think you've answered it to some extent. It applies both in Canada and in the United States. I know myself that when I was, after Pop-Up Gaeltacht started, that we were actually inundated with communities online and actual geographical communities in North America who were interested in replicating Pop-Up Gaeltacht. So I think, as echoing Ruth's comments there, a search on Facebook for, like, say, Pop-Up Gaeltacht in North America would give you a good few suggestions. And obviously all of the online links and even TEG are all still suggestions that are applicable no matter where you are. Ciara, Leonard.
No, Vivek Kunara, I spent some time teaching Irish in Villanova in Philadelphia, and there's a group in America called Daltaí na Gaeilge. So I sent their website in the chat there, but if you just look up daltaí.com, DALTAI, and they'll have information. I know they used to do weekends around the country, but I don't know if obviously that won't be happening at the moment, but I'm sure they have a lot of information. I just looked up the website there and quickly put in a link underneath.
So I have a question for you. I want to practice speaking Irish, but nobody in my life speaks it. Is there any online groups or communities where you can practice?
Yeah, interesting question. That was my dilemma when I was about 18. I just completely changed my whole life and got groups of friends that speak Irish. That might not be really feasible at the moment. Yeah, I think there's a lot of different groups online. I don't know what level you're at, or if there's different groups for Fowlamori, people who are learning. I'm maybe Kieran or Ruth might know about that. I'm part of a group online called the Queercle Cora, so it's for queer Irish speakers and allies. I think I am aware that the person who runs it says he didn't want it to be like a ghetto, that there was nobody welcome from the other side. But like we were up until all hours the other night, just like my beautiful little screen of people around the world. There was people from America as well. So there were some people who were learning, which I can't believe they found such an amazing learning resource as this like sassy group of people like just chatting away about like God knows what. Yeah, so on Queercle Cora, that's one thing you could do. What else? There's a lot of events have migrated online now. For example, I run a poetry night called Rec. We're going to have an event next Friday And that, I know that would just be watching, but with those kind of Facebook, YouTube live premieres as well, they have like a live chat. So that would be one way for you to kind of be actually engaging with real culture. Because I know when you're looking at a book or that sort of learning resource, it really feels like not a living language. So I'd say engage with as many of these online events. If you don't have anything around you, now is a good time actually, because everything has migrated online.
So I think maybe we could have a bit of a round robin here about favorite online resources like podcasts, TV series, radio station, Instagram pages. So Ciara Luitu Quirkle Cora, is that a Facebook group or is that a?
I think there might be a group for it. No, there's not a group for it on Facebook, but it's on Instagram.
It's on Instagram, so that's an Instagram. Is there any other Instagram pages that you'd recommend for people?
Okay, other people join in because I'm totally free.
Okay, all right. Okay, Ciara, you're up.
I'd say if you're going Instagram, maybe look up the likes of Moonshore Meg. Especially Moonshore Meg is a teacher, and she obviously does her whole life blogged off Gaeilge, but she has really good subtitles underneath every story about what she's saying, and really clear, concise Irish. So it's really nice.
Ruth, any radio stations, TV series, podcasts that you could recommend?
I think now, just to echo what everyone's saying, like Instagram is where it's all at, I think, these days. So even if you follow one person, you'll get all the recommendations for the next. So there's Gael Gals, there's a group of Irish young girls who do all of their stuff os Gaeilge, and anything Moon Tour, all of the Moon Tours, all the teachers, I do some Instagram os Gaeilge Freshen, the Colleen Ruth. And yeah, so then when you go from there, you'll get all these other recommendations. But definitely, like Ciara's YouTube, have a look at that, and you'll get all the different ones. I love Bluck TG Cahir. They do great videos on Instagram as well, but on YouTube. So they kind of just take, people just do their own little vlogs, and you have the subtitles underneath it. So again, this is what we're saying about, just integrating Irish into your life. You can just, if you're on the bus or something or going somewhere, watch a little 10-minute video on YouTube, and then that's a lot, and then you'll get new words from that or whatever. And Mother Folklore, podcast is excellent. Freshen, it can be English agus Gaeilge, it doesn't have to just be the one, you can get new words and new phrases and just learn different things from different ways as well. So yeah, there's just so many, and just once you start looking, you'll get recommended all of them. So,
and I think we'd be remiss not to mention Bjorn Egan, from originally on Radio Gaeltacht, and now on, is it RT2 or 2FM, or is it RT2?
It's RT Egan,
RT Egan, one of the RTEs. If you search for Bjorn Egan, and the reason that I think that's great for learners is that there's it's very, very casual, normalized conversations about normal things. It's in Irish, but not about Irish, which is all too often rare. But and as well as that, you have three county there, or three dialects there, and so you hear the interplay and the different the different county or dialects interacting with each other, and I just think it's fantastic content for anybody at any level. And I mean, say for example, if you don't understand everything, that's also okay, because you will pick it up over time. It is as close as you can get to immersion, I feel. So speaking of dialects, there's probably like a question there. I know that people have asked this before. Is there a better dialect to learn or others, or what's people's opinions on which dialect? It's one of these tropes that you need to select one, or you shouldn't select one, or you should use Gaeilge Chaidanach. So I'm going to ask the educators first, Ciara, if that's all right, and then get your take on it. Ciaran, what do you think about dialects and selecting dialects?
I have to say, Donegal gets a very bad doing when we get people coming to us, and very regularly, you'll either have someone from America or North America who, for some reason, there's an awful lot of Donegal Irish in North America, and a lot of teachers over there, so they do speak kind of Donegal Irish, and they want that. And then you have a lot of people who come and they say they don't want that, or they don't want Connemara, or they don't want this, that, and the other. All I would say, and all we always just say is, you're going to get a teacher of every sort. at some point in your life. You know, all of our teachers vary so much, right from really Dublin to really Connemara. So it's, you know, it's gonna change. You have to get used to them all. There's, you know, but it does help kind of picking one at the end.
Okay, so it's so maybe at the start that it's an enrichment. It's definitely not a barrier. It's an enrichment, and then as you develop your own Conant or your own dialect or whatever, it'll kind of iron itself out, and not to get too hung up about it would be.
And I think a lot of people like around our age and stuff now who maybe learned Irish in the summer colleges and that, you don't have a Conant. You just have a lot of Irish from a lot of different areas that you say it that way, you know.
Ruth, can you have no hang fish in? What do you think?
Yeah, ain't English in. I agree with that. So, well, kind of when you teach it here, at a very basic level, beginner's level, like you don't want to scare people into saying, you know, you have to choose right now and you only know how to say diaquets, you know, and and then you have to make your life choices right now. So what I say to them, you know, it's like I will tell them that 3, you know, official dialects exist. And I'm not going to keep it a secret that like maybe sometimes you'll hear someone say, oh, Tassam, or, you know, instead of whatever. And you know, so I'll always be saying, well, you might hear someone say this or you might hear this, but then as Kieran says, eventually, like you can choose one at the end of your journey or towards the end if there's something that you're comfortable with. But definitely just to kind of be patient with yourself and see what you find, you know, is most comfortable for you. And I actually wrote my thesis on this. So, you know, I have a lot of different opinions about it. So sometimes people say, oh, you should, you know, from day one, just focus on one. Or you could just kind of use your own voice, as Kieran says, like people just end up having their own kind of way of speaking, and that's fine. So I find that to be okay. So it's kind of a personal journey, and you can just kind of go and just be patient with yourself and see what's natural and comfortable for you.
I really like that to be patient with yourself, and I think if Canal to Latin as Ladinal is good life advice no matter what. Kira, do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh God, I was searching my brain here for a thought.
Well, if you don't, if you've nothing to add, don't worry.
No, I have a thought. I was just trying to not be too defensive because I'm from Dublin, so I learned Irish in loads of different places from different teachers. Kind of like what Kieran said, you're going to get a teacher from everywhere. And then I went to the Gaeltacht in Connemara. So when I probably was 18, I spoke with Connemara Irish more so than anything. But then I spent 4 years at Trinity mixing with everyone in the Common Gaelach. And I guess we had our own kind of Conant. And I kind of hit my stacha shin. And then I got older and I started learning that you have to, you know, there's certain things you have to say. Like you have to be able to put a shevu in or use an or quail to show a plural or put a shevu in to show, you know, whatever you're showing, possession. But yeah, so I try and make sure that I have all the sounds right, but I'm not too worried about Conant as such. But it does happen, probably because Irish is my second language, that when I'm talking to someone from whatever Conant, that I start using their words. So like, even if I'm in an email, I'm talking to someone from Belfast, I'm like, Erdoe, like what? But yeah, I mean, that's fun as well. And I like that I can tell the differences between the dialects and I can appreciate them all.
I think that's something that we do in English as well, like a lot of us, like, you know.
That's true.
So we're coming up to 2 minutes to 2. Cliona, I don't know what's your take on this. Do we wrap it up? Is there a few more questions that you'd like to send through to me?
Yeah, I suppose if we wrap up, if anyone wants to mention, do a little social media plug for the 4AV. I've been scribbling away at all the list of resources that people have mentioned there as well. So we'll send anyone that's here, they're registered through Eventbrite, we'll send out an email after this with all the resources, and this is being live streamed as well. So this will all be available up on YouTube, on USI's YouTube then afterwards as well. So if you want to go around and do a little bit of a social media plug, maybe Ruth, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to follow my Canada journey and see what I'm up to here, my Instagram is Dochalin Ruth, so DOCHAILIN or UT, and you're more than welcome to follow there. And if anyone has any questions, my DMs are always open. Carmila Maggie.
Oscar,
well, for here, like at the moment, just with the pubs being closed, the pop-up Gaeltacht is not happening in Dublin. But I know that some people are using the pop-up Gaeltacht name for Circle Cora, etc. And I think that that's maybe a good way for the audience to get into online communities by searching for that, looking for Circle Cora. I can be found on Oscar O'Kira on Twitter, OSGU or OCIA or DHA. And I tweet mainly in Irish and usually quite angry. So if you're into that, you can follow me. Again, DMs are open.
Yeah, quite angry, but rightfully so a lot of the time. We'll give you that. Kira, Jane.
Yeah, my I'm Misha Kira on everything pretty much. So MISECIA or A. So I have SoundCloud and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And then REC, the spoken word night that I run, is REIC, and we have an event next Friday. It's going to be premiered on YouTube, so make sure you find that and watch.
Perfect. Good. Kieran.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm on a little bit of a hiatus from all social medias at the moment, just with everything that's going on in the world. But usually I'd be at Kieran Roy, or OY, but it's very quiet at the moment, and it would be off Gaeilge. But I am going to say, if you can, try and follow Conradh na Gaeilge. We're on everything: Instagram, Facebook, even LinkedIn for those professionals, at CNAG or at CNA Gaeilge, and all of the updates will be there. And then in the future, if people on this call are ever in Dublin and they come to 6 Harcourt Street, there is a bar in the basement called Club Conradh na Gaeilge, and that's also on Twitter at Club Conradh. And we'd love to see you.
Thanks so much, Kieran. And I think I can speak for a lot of us here when we were saying we're all very much looking forward to seeing Club Conradh. Arisa Tauki. So thank you very much to all of the panelists. Oscar ar Cahirloch, Ruth, Kira, August Kieran. As I said earlier, we will be sending around a list of all the resources and anything that was mentioned throughout the discussion. Anyone that was on the Eventbrite will send you an email, and it'll be up on the USI website and our social media as well. Just in terms of USI, if there's any students that are affiliated with USI, as I said, if you want to get involved with any of the Irish language campaigns that USI runs, or if you have any feedback for us, so my USI Twitter is USI_Gaeilge, and my email then is gaeilge@usi.ie, and there's information then if you go onto the USI website, there's a little Gaeilge tab there as well. You can find out more information. But as I said, thank you so much. Gur míle maith Dwachtan at Honig, do na Cointery League. I'm so surprised at how much more I get to learn about Irish when I go to these events, having been on the scene Mary Gerha for a couple of years. So it's always great to get a few more nuggets of information and things like that as well. So I hope you all enjoyed it. Everyone be slán agus sábháilte agus torgi ara díobh hain. Gur míle maith agus slán.